Okay. Figured as long as I'm doing this, I'll give a quick lesson in cutting. I did it quick with a shear. Just cut the metal piece out that I'm going to be cutting, and I started a line already. Now, before you cut, you want to make sure that your saw blade is very tight in the frame. Listen, should make a musical note, and you want to use plenty of lubricant. Okay, the lubricant does several things. One, it makes the saw cut easier through your metal, which is important, especially when you're cutting copper, which tends to be very, the best way I can describe it is like clay. It's very clayish. You know, it kind of gunks up your blade quickly if you don't use that. Also, it keeps heat down. If you heat up your saw blade in the metal by sawing too quickly or without lubricant, you're going to lose the temper in your blade, and it will dull very quickly. You'd be amazed at how quick. And you just want to take and put a little bit on your saw blade, take a little bit on your finger, and rub where you're going to be sawing. So, and that should be enough. You'll add more to the saw blade occasionally. Okay. Now, I did start already. I don't know if you can see. You want to make sure that when you're sawing flat. You don't want your bench pin to be angled. You want it to be flat. And you want to make sure you have really good light. And if you need magnification like I do, because I'm getting older, you want to make sure you have magnifications where you can see the saw very clearly. Okay. Now, when you're sawing, a lot of people will have a death grip, where you see a death grip where you're just death gripped on the handle. Don't do that. Saw properly. It's a very, very loose grip, a thumb right behind the saw frame, and it literally can be just pulled out of your hand. Okay. Here, let's do this over here. Okay. So you want to have it here, just very lightly held in your hand, and you should be able to literally just pull it right out. That's all the grip you need. The weight of the saw frame does the work. Okay. You should be able to cut this whole entire piece out with a single saw blade without it being dulled. That's the ideal. If you're new, probably won't happen, but that's the ideal you go for. Okay, so what you want to do, you want to start slowly, and I've already cut into here a little bit. Now you want to take and keep the blade quite straight and in line. You want to be looking. You don't want the blade. You don't want to be cutting here or here, but we will occasionally, but that's unusual. You generally want the saw frame to be straight. You don't move the work to the metal. You move the metal to where you're working, the working part of the blade. So you want to just go slow. You don't want to do little tiny quick strokes. You want to do the whole width of the blade. So, and you want to stay just to the outside of the line you scribed. And you can hear this as it cuts. And don't be out here where it's going to wobble, because what will happen is you're going to break your blade. It's going to be in close. Just throw your blade out. Grab another, pop it in. And you will break blades. You will break a lot of blades. And then you have to figure out which way they are when you put them in here. A little brush in your back, I see. You will break a lot of blades through the years. Some days you just break a lot. So now this blade is a little bigger than the one I had, so I'm going to have to cut in through the kerf. The kerf is the little space that I cut out. It's the width of the saw blade. So put it in close to the pin to support your work. You don't press hard, just enough to hold it in place. Just the weight of your hand is enough. Pull out a little bit so you don't hit the soft frame. Let's see. Cutting new metal. You can hear the metal blade as it cuts on the downstroke. Now you don't want to scribe your lines too deeply, because what happens is when you go to cut, because the lines are scribed into your metal, that's actually a slightly thinner spot in the metal, and your saw will want to migrate or move into that spot, into that scribed line. That's why you make your lines very, very light. You don't have to worry about them like rubbing off or anything, because they won't. And you also want to pick a saw blade that's always going to have at least 2 teeth on the thickness of the metal at all times. That's very important, because otherwise your teeth will, the metal will catch in between the teeth of the saw blade, and it'll catch and jerk, and you'll break a lot more blades. A little more lubricant. Lubricant is important. And here I must have turned my hand a little bit, because I actually started cutting to the left a little bit. I'm just moving away from my line. So what I want to do is I want to correct by making sure that my hand is correct. And chances are the reason I did that is because I must have shifted my hand or something a little bit. It happens. Or that's usually the case. Sometimes it's because you hit a different density in the metal from where it was rolled, but almost always it's operator error. So we correct and we go back and we keep sawing, and that's pretty much the basics of sawing. Now you just have to do a lot of practice. There are some jewelry techniques that are called scroll work, where basically all you do is you're cutting the designs into metal with saws. I mean, that's what you do. There are people who are truly excellent at that technique. I, however, am not one of them. So, you will see, oh, computer screen went darker, but it's still recording. So we'll see if it decides to shut off at some point. The lubricant I use, a lot of people will use beeswax or like peppermint oil or whatever. The one I use is a commercial lubricant from Rio Grande. Works great. It's like a very light wax. That's almost a little fluid. So it works really, really well. It doesn't clog up your saw blades. And I can see myself going off a little bit. A little bit there. So we just keep going. And I'm about a quarter of the way around now. And then you keep turning your head back and forth to see where you're cutting on this. And I'm going a little bit off to the left again. What happens is your little chips, fly into the front of where you're trying to cut, so you're constantly cleaning them off. And because I'm a quarter of the way around, I'm just going to, like little tiny saws off to the side, back up a little bit, and I'm just going to make a turn. And hold on to this, and I'm just going to keep behind my saw blade, and I'm just going to saw straight out. There we go. Nice smooth. Well, there's one little blop right there where I went out, and another one right there where I went to the left a little bit. Otherwise, a nice smooth curve. And that is how you saw.